Only a quarter of voters support Boris Johnson's law-breaking plan on Brexit. Only a quarter of voters support Boris Johnson's law-breaking plan to override parts of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. New polling suggests. The polling suggests that the government is in deep trouble with voters over its admission it would break international law to change its Brexit plans. Some 47% of voters say planning to break the law is unacceptable, according to YouGov polling, with only 25% believing it would be acceptable. Once don't knows are stripped out, around two-thirds of those with an opinion oppose the government's position. The polling, carried out for Best for Britain, also found almost a quarter, 24% of Conservative voters are not supportive of the position, and just 52% of Tory voters say it is acceptable. Younger voters are overwhelmingly opposed to the government's position, with only 6% of 18 to 24-year-olds deeming it acceptable. Best for Britain CEO Naomi Smith said, "Any government that can get only half its supporters on board with the controversial policy is in deep trouble." Boris Johnson has completely lost non-Tory voters on this issue, doesn't have the backing of a huge number of his own voters, and is struggling to maintain Westminster discipline as well. None of which is surprising for a party which considers itself to be a champion of law and order. Whether the government really will break the law or not is, in many ways, a moot point. The admission by Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis that law-breaking was on the cards, coupled with the international perception that Britain has gone rogue, has already hurt this country's battered reputation and caused considerable damage to the government's standing in the eyes of voters. Boris Johnson issues minister's new ruling, the word Brexit is now banned. Boris Johnson has issued his ministers with the new ruling that the word Brexit is banned, mirroring Basil Fawlty when he told staff not to mention the war to avoid upsetting his German guests. Boris Johnson has issued his ministers with the new ruling to keep them on message as the Prime Minister takes on Brussels over the lack of a deal. It mirrors Basil in Fawlty Towers when he told his staff not to mention the war to avoid upsetting his German guests. The PM has told ministers to stop saying Brexit because that has now been achieved. The memo says the word can now be used only as a historical event that took place on January 31, 2020. In March 2019 we launched a campaign to stop talking about Brexit for one whole day. We argued that after years of non-stop talk about Article 50 and leaving the EU it was time to give the nation a break. It comes as Tory ministers are split over the PM's latest stance, claiming the amendment of his so-called Dove and Ready deal with Europe is a breach of international law. Justice Secretary Robert Buckland said yesterday he would resign. He added, "If I see the rule of law being broken in a way I find unacceptable, then of course I will go. I don't believe we are going to get to that stage. But I know in my mind what I have to do. But the government collectively here also has a responsibility. We've got to resolve any conflict, that's what we will do."